What happens in the dark comes to light, and fortunately, we are now seeing some of the impact of the things that Nerida Hansen has done in the dark because they are surely coming to light. Let's talk about it. Listen, you guys know I normally am functioning off of my handy dandy iPad to make sure that I stay on task as well as provide the most accurate information that I can. But I just came in from the gym and I don't feel like running upstairs to go grab my iPad. So we're going to be functioning off of my handy dandy iPhone instead. Okay. So let's talk about what happened yesterday as of September 10th with Nerida Hansen. So, after receiving over 120 complaints in the past 12 months, and that is from September 2024 to August 2025, about orders not being delivered or refunds being processed, the total amount consumers are alleging that they've lost is now upwards of 30,000 AUD. Now, as a result of that, as of September 10th, the Consumer Affairs Victoria has issued a public warning against Nerida Hansen and her fabric textile business. Wow. So they are citing the issues including accepting payments without delivering goods, which we have talked about, right? Because that is absolutely what started me talking about this on my channel, because I placed an order, kept getting the runaround, never received my goods. Also, canceling orders without notice. There are many people who spoke up against Nerida Hansen's quite questionable business practices, who then received retaliation from Nerida Hansen by having her cancel their orders. And then failing to issue refunds when asked. So people who decided that they no longer wanted to wait for the impending doom when it came to their orders, i.e. not ever receiving the order, canceled their order. They never received their refunds. And then, of course, the poor responses to complaints. Like, literally, her entire email account at some point in time became, like, undone. Like, people were getting bounce backs, right? Or there was a point in time where she'd given a phone number to call, and then that was turned off. And yeah. Now, the businesses that she operates under include, but may not be limited to, Indigo Palm, The Kind Merch Co., Nerida Hansen Fabrics, Rebel Quilts, Australian Surface Art Collective, Fabric and Design, and Nerida Hansen Print and Textiles. That's a lot of businesses, y'all. I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like having multiple businesses, that's not necessarily like a red flag in my head, but in this instance, like, that's a lot. And then I feel like she just started a new one too, because definitely got messages from some people and tags and some things that were alluding to that. As of December 1st, 2022, Nerida Hansen's Fabrics has and apparently Australia has what's called an ABN, and that has been canceled as of December 1st. And then the company was placed into liquidation, voluntary via a liquidator, on May 31st, 2022. And according to delisted.com.au, as of yesterday, the company is in external administration. So, let's talk about what all of this means, especially if you are not an Australian and you don't know what Consumer Affairs Victoria is. So if you're an American and you are not well versed in the government or businesses or how they process overseas, you may be confused as to what the Consumer Affairs Victoria, and that's often shortened to CAV, actually is and how that kind of relates to businesses. Because I know that when I saw people saying, oh, reporter to Consumer Affairs Victoria, reporter, I was like, I don't know what that means for me. So of course, had to do what many people decide not to do and Google it and do some research, right? So in a nutshell, it's kind of like a watchdog that looks out for both consumers as well as businesses to make sure that the marketplace is fair and transparent. So I feel like it's very similar to like our Better Business Bureau, right? As far as the roles and responsibilities, it's designed and set up to protect customers. So it'll investigate the complaints. Like Nerida's business received 120 complaints. So they are going ahead and investigating those complaints. They also work to regulate businesses. So they oversee industries like real estate agents, motor car traders, fundraisers, et cetera, right? They also enforce the law, so they can issue those public warnings, i.e. the one that Nerida Hansen has received. They can issue fines. or even take businesses to court for breaking consumer laws. I'm actually surprised that this hasn't happened already, right? Because I shared in a previous video that Nerida Hansen owed some 1.5 billion before she filed for bankruptcy, I believe. I don't even remember all the details of what I said in that video, but I'm just like, not saying that 30,000 AUD is not a lot of money, right? But like, she's been here, done this with way more. They also provide education. They publish guides as well as resources to help people understand their rights when buying goods or services, and they help businesses understand their obligations, right? So if you are in Victoria and a trader doesn't deliver your goods, refuses refunds, i.e. Nerida Hansen, you can lodge a complaint with the CAV. They can mediate those disputes and issue warnings, right? So what do the public warnings mean? Because like I said, yesterday on September 10th, they issued the public warning against Nerida Hansen, right? And so a public warning is just an official alert, and it's issued under the Australian consumer law. And it's used when there's a pattern of complaints or evidence that shows the trader's conduct is likely to cause harm to consumers, right? These warnings are really meant to protect the public so that the public already knows that there are some issues that this business is now having, right? So this is actually something that I wish more people did, because one, it gives the opportunity for a business to get their stuff together so that way they can be a little bit more successful, more honorable with their business practices. But most importantly, it protects future consumers from making different decisions with their purchases, right? Because if I'd known that this had been going on for a really long time, I definitely would not have made purchases for that fabric, and she would have never been on my radar. But because unfortunately that was not the case, I was left, like many others, making uneducated purchases. And I feel like the trouble with some of these things, right, is that if you lived in Australia, in fact, my friends in Australia were like, girl, I would have absolutely told you about Nerida. But living in the States, every time I looked her up, there was nothing that I could find as far as questionable business practices. So I do feel like having these public warnings is really, really helpful, because now this is public consumption. Now this can be found wherever. In fact, I have been sent social media posts. So this is something that is really, really public. Okay. And so when are these public warnings used? Obviously, when lots of complaints come in, right? Or a trader is taking money without delivering their products or services, or those businesses are failing to provide the necessary refunds. And so what they mean for shoppers. And I do feel like as consumers, it is definitely up to us to make sure that we're responsible with our decision-making abilities with our money, right? Which is why I think it's so bananas that Nerida Hansen still has so many people supporting her, because I'm just like, y'all are making it so that other people come out and spend their money and don't get their product, right? This impacted so many other businesses. It was a very big trickle-down effect, right? It's more than just, oh man, I didn't get my fabric. It's now these smaller businesses have been impacted because they can't provide a product or a product that they had promised, because they no longer have access to that fabric, right? Or those raw materials. And so what it means, of course, for shoppers is that it's like, hey, if there is this public warning, do not buy. They are under investigation, or buyer beware, right? It gives the necessary background information that I myself needed and would have appreciated. What they mean for businesses is that, listen, you are under investigation. This is a red flag on your record, right? You are under investigation. There might be some legal action. It really kind of depends. So I feel like having that conversation is a really big one, especially if you are not in Australia. We just simply don't know how that works, unless you do business in Australia. And then one of the other things that I was like, what's an ABN? So an ABN is their Australian business number. In the United States, we have something called like a tax ID number, which functions very similarly, because it's just their unique 11-digit identifier for their business, right? And so it just identifies the business to the community, to the government, to everyone, very similar to our tax ID number. So I felt like that was really helpful when I found out that information, so that way I could be clear. And my other thing that I would actually really like to do more of is take a look at where like other countries and do they all have something similar to that? And so that way I can be more well versed on that for myself, just personally. So on the Consumer Affairs Instagram page, Consumer Affairs Victoria, I'll make sure that I put the picture up here. They did issue their public warning. And on this public warning on social media, it does read, shopping for fabric online, be careful. Victorians have contacted us more than 120 times in the last year about Nerida Hansen and her business, reportedly losing more than $30,000 in total. Shoppers say they paid for fabrics that were not delivered, had orders canceled without notice, were denied refunds. Hansen has sold her products through a host of websites. She currently sells them at iamncreative.com and promotes via Instagram. We are investigating. Had a bad experience? Report it via the complaint form on our website or call 1300-558181. Read the full public warning via the link in our bio. Now the comments, definitely someone commented me and tagging me here. Also include her being linked to Global D-Stash too, so make sure you look into that. Someone said, careful, she'll accuse you of bullying. So glad to see her exposed finally. I wasn't impacted, but I can imagine how many people have been and continue to be impacted by this. Unfortunately, CAV page doesn't support a filing from outside of Australia with any foreign address. Many more people were robbed by her. #facts. She's also screwed a lot of artists with the Pattern Field app. I believe CAV is happy to take reports from overseas purchasers. Please encourage everyone you know who's impacted by this, regardless of where they are, to make a report. And underneath that, it says the reports only accept Australian addresses. So what this says to me is that, one, not everybody has been as fervent in the past about making it known that they have been robbed by this woman. And I think that accountability is key, right? Whereas she's saying that people are bullying her, I don't see it as bullying. I really do feel like people are holding her accountable. And I feel like I've said this in previous videos that I do think that, like, business-wise, she has really fantastic ideas. Her execution is where her problem is. And I do think that I do really hope that she can grow from this. I doubt that she will, because she is very, like, delusional in her behavior, as in she makes it everybody's fault besides her own, owning nothing, besides excuses. So I would love to see her grow from this, though, because again, she has really fantastic business ideas. Her execution is just kind of where it is. So I'm interested to know your thoughts. If you are in Australia, make sure that you go ahead and file your claim, especially if you were impacted by this. I will make sure that I include the full link to the the Consumer Affairs article, as well as where you can file your reports here, because I do think that it's important that we really hold businesses accountable. I am a business owner myself, and I do think that accountability, when we ask businesses to show up and meet the standards that they set, I think that that is a form of rooting for that business to succeed, right? Because if we just were like, oh, this business doesn't show up and do anything, and just simply left and gave all of the negative feedback to everyone, and that business never received it so they could be better, right? Or be best, that actually does more damage than say, hey, I'm holding you accountable to what you said that you were going to do, so that you can see that there's a gap in the standard that you're setting and actually what you're doing, giving you the opportunity to bridge that gap, because I'm bringing this to you. Because now there is the gap that we see that we can close. Can she close the gap? I have no idea. I do not want to be that person who is, like, thinking negatively, but I also, you know, I've also see how she moves on the internet. So we'll see. We shall see. Drop your comments below and let me know your thoughts. Definitely fill me in on more information, because I did receive a message. Let me pull this message up on my Facebook, because sometimes I get Facebook messages, and I gotta be honest, I definitely feel like a boomer a lot of times as I'm navigating this, because I'll be like, I wasn't sure where it was. You know what I'm saying? But I received a message I know I received it on Instagram. No, I know I responded to it via Let's see. No, pet for Patriot Day. What? I'm trying to get to my other account. But I had received a message that was like, there are so many things that she's, or this has been going on for so long that this is not like, I don't want to say that this is not anything new, but like, this isn't anything new. She's been doing this like for a while. This isn't the first time, won't be the final time. And I believe that, right? Like I 1000% agree with that. And I'm not surprised by that. The thing I feel like that is, maybe it wasn't on this account.